Welcome, aviators. I am your host, Holly Blino, and I'm very happy to have you here today on the Aviator's Guide. I hope you enjoyed my first episode where I just covered a little bit about my background and the goals of this podcast. If you haven't already, head back and listen to those 5 minutes, and then from there, subscribe and follow my podcast so you can be sure to see all the future episodes on how to start the coolest career and hobby ever, becoming a pilot. Although I am a little biased, but come on, you can't beat those views. Before we get started, there's something that's been on my mind for a couple months now since I read it and have been seeing it all over the place. And it's that Airbus, who is just a common manufacturer for commercial aircraft, they're considering building a flight deck, aka cockpit, that only requires one pilot for operation. Yes, one pilot. I'm sure that sounds great and cost efficient to all the CEOs of airlines and cargo companies out there. But what I'm wondering is what you guys think. Would you personally feel comfortable being a passenger in an aircraft with only one pilot up in that flight deck? One pilot in charge of getting hundreds of people on the ground safely? One pilot with no one else up there to double check his moves in terms of safety? I honestly would like to know your opinions on this, so please shoot me an email over at youraviatorsguide@gmail.com. All right, now that I got that off my chest, let's move on. Since I began flight school in January of 2021, I have had a lot of people ask me what the pilot process is like. And that's really why I started this podcast, is just to help spread the word. We are always needing great pilots. And whether you're going to be a first generation pilot like myself, or you already have friends and family in aviation to help you, I still hope to be a resource for you along your way to help you find your footing and your wings. As I discuss these items, I'm sure more and more questions will pop into your mind, but don't worry. I will try and make an episode for everything that I can think of to help you guys out. So don't forget to subscribe, follow, and like, and send all your questions to youraviatorsguide@gmail.com. Now let's see if becoming a pilot is right for you. Economically speaking, right now is a fantastic time for you to start your pilot journey because we are still currently in a golden age of aviation, meaning pilots are needed. So what all do you need to start your pilot training? Let's talk about it. The biggest obstacle that I can think of for many aspiring pilots is obtaining the medical. There are 3 things every pilot has to have on his person at all times, and that is a valid government photo issued ID, their pilot's license, and yes, a valid medical. There are 4 types of medicals, and in order from the most strict to the least strict, there's the first class medical, second class medical, third class medical, and basic med. In order for you to go to the airlines, you have to have that first class medical. And in order to get a first class medical, you have to pass a variety of examinations, including eyesight, hearing, cardiovascular, and neurological. But don't worry, these exams aren't usually as scary as they sound. You can actually find full details of what's covered in these exams if you go to ecfr.gov, click on Title 14, then choose Chapter 1, and then Subchapter D as in Delta, and then click on Part 67, Medical Standards and Certification. By the way, bookmark that ECFR Title 14 because this will be your bread and butter for the entire time you're a pilot, and you'll be reading that thing more than you'd like. I have a link to that website in the show notes to make it easier for you guys. When it comes to scheduling your medical, all you have to do is find an aviation medical examiner or an AME near you, make an appointment, fill out your MedExpress form online, and then fork over $45 to $200, depending on who does your exam. I have been to 4 different AMEs, and they all do things a little differently. I've paid $45. I've paid $150. One of them even gave me a discount for being a flight instructor. You never really know what you're going to get. I have included links in the show notes to direct you to finding an AME in your area and also to help you fill out your MedExpress form before you go to said AME. Just remember that everything you say to your AME goes on record and you can get in trouble for lying. Now, if you believe you can pass the scrutiny of the medical exam, the next order of business is funding. How are you going to pay for it? Flight school is unfortunately not cheap. It can range anywhere from $40,000 to $150,000 to complete all your licenses and ratings, depending on where you go and how long it takes you. There are 2 types of flight training you can do, Part 61 and Part 141. I'll cover these in depth in a different episode, but in terms of financing, Part 61 is generally more cost efficient. And that's because when you're using Part 61, you generally just pay and fly as you go. However, the more breaks you take in between flights, the longer it could take you to finish. If you take even 1 week off from flying, it could drastically dampen any progress that you've made. Frequency is crucial. Trust me, after being a flight instructor for over 2 years, I've seen it. My flight school was not a go at your own pace kind of program, which wasn't so bad because it helped keep me on track. So maybe that might be something that you would prefer as well. Regardless, some things are going to come around that could deter your training, be it weather, scheduling issues, aircraft maintenance, or even yourself. So if you are working on saving your money for flight school, it might be best to wait until you have $10,000 to $15,000 saved up. So if there is anything that does hold you back, it at least won't be your finances, and that's one less thing to worry about. I'm sure some of you are like I was and are thinking, where in the world am I going to get that kind of money? Well, if you're lacking in rich friends, fat trust funds, bless y'all that have those, I'm jealous, and you don't have a getaway car, then you're just going to have to settle for scholarships, private loans, or federal loans. I myself used a combination of private loans and scholarships. If you guys have room to borrow on your federal loans, do that. I unfortunately did not, as I used all my federal loans for my bachelor's degree at UTSA. So I had to opt in for the only place that would loan $50,000 to a furloughed flight attendant. Don't think they did me any favors though. This company just had some sort of agreement with where I went to flight school, and that loan is still sitting pretty heavily on my shoulders at a 10.85% interest rate. Yeah. On the bright side, I did receive a $20,000 scholarship from my flight school, and that didn't include the housing scholarship that I received, as they did put me up in student housing. Now, it wasn't Buckingham Palace or anything, but I did have my own room and there was a washer dryer, so I couldn't complain much. Although I did try. If you'd like to see what kind of scholarships are out there for you guys, you can just search aviation scholarships, but I also put some links down in the show notes for you guys to help you out. There are hundreds upon hundreds of scholarships, so take a look and see what you could get. Once you're feeling good about your medical and you're determined to get financing, what else? You gotta have perseverance and patience. This career path could lead to some pretty hefty paychecks, and one day you could be there. One day. It takes time. I would say the average pilot can make it to the regional airlines in about 3 years after starting flight school. Why so long? Well, after you complete your licenses and ratings, you still have to build 1,500 hours of flight time before you can make it to the airlines, the regional airlines, such as Envoy, Piedmont, and the like. You need a bit more experience before you can fly for the majors, such as United and American. Now listen up. If you have an associate's degree in aviation, it lowers that 1,500 hours to 1,250 hours. And what's more, if you have a bachelor's degree in aviation, it lowers that 1,500 hours down to 1,000 hours. Once you get into aviation, you'll stop counting how many likes you have on social media, and you'll start aggressively counting your flight hours. But maybe you're thinking, Holly, what if I don't really want to go to the airlines? Well, that's fine too. There are other options, other really cool alternatives, and I will talk about those, but in another episode. All right, you're in pristine physical condition, you found a rich bestie or some good scholarships, and you have more patience than a kindergarten school teacher. What's next? You have to find the right flight school for you. One of the many things to keep in mind when researching flight schools is that just about every basic flight school will accept you. At the end of the day, they just want your lunch money. Here are some more things I want you to keep in mind as you're researching these flight schools. One is, how long are the programs and what do they offer? Some flight schools have a 9-month program. Others say you can get your private pilot license in 2 weeks. The school I attended has a 17-month program, and that includes getting your associate's degree in aviation. And what does that do, folks? That's right. It knocks down the required 1,500 hours of flight time down to 1,250 hours of flight time. So maybe ask yourself, would you prefer to do some extra work to need less flight hours? Maybe you'd want a school that offers a bachelor's program in aviation along with all of your ratings and licenses to knock those 1,500 hours down to 1,000 hours. Maybe you don't even care and you just want to get in, get your licenses, and get out. It's up to you. It's your future. But if you do want those decreased hours, you will have to go to a Part 141 flight school. So I have included an FAA link down in the show notes to help you find 141 flight schools. Some of those 141 flight schools will also do Part 61 training. So if that's something that you're interested in, go ahead and ask them when you give them a call. When it comes to programs, find out if they have any partnership programs with airlines. These partnership programs can be a game changer if you know for sure you want to go to the airlines. They allow you opportunities such as easier access to an in person interview, tuition reimbursement, and the ability to start building your company seniority sooner, which in aviation, seniority is everything. What about the flight school's aircraft? Are they outdated? Are they well maintained? To get an idea of this, go on a discovery flight. Discovery flights are great. They give you an idea of how good the planes are, how knowledgeable the instructors are, what the school's facilities are like, and most importantly, they give you a taste of flying so you'll know if you'll actually enjoy it or not. While you're in the air, you can even ask the flight instructor taking you up what it was like going to school there, because there's a very big chance that flight instructor was a student there as well. And yes, discovery flights do cost money, unfortunately, a couple $100s. However, back when I was researching flight schools, I got 2 free discovery flights just for letting the schools know I hadn't decided where I was going to go yet. And if they don't offer, you can always ask. All they can do is say no. Remember, they want your business. When it comes to pricing, you want to know what each flight school charges for everything. So try and get an itemized copy of their prices. I know a few students who have been secretly swindled by flight schools before, so make sure you get that itemized copy and keep track of your charges. Other than all of those questions, there are other things that you should be asking flight schools as well, and I made a whole PDF for you guys. The link to that is in the show notes, so go ahead and take a look. Once you have picked your flight school, the last thing you need to do could take a little bit of time, but hopefully not too much. And that's if it feels right to you in your gut. I know that may sound stupid or lame, but it's true. You gotta feel that it's right. Here's a little example for you. Say you did a discovery flight and you felt like a rock star. You loved the views and the feels, so you go for it. You start flight school. You start spending money. You start studying for exams, because you will have exams for the rest of your life as a pilot. And you will have to study science, aerodynamics, systems, weather, math. And once you're done with school, you're not actually done with school. And then the reality of the career starts to sink in with you and you're not vibing with it anymore. If you realize flight school is not for you before you even get your student pilot's license in the mail, then you're a lucky one. I know pilots who have spent thousands upon thousands of dollars in flight school before realizing that they don't want this. So go with your gut, don't waste your time, and don't waste your money. This career, like most, takes commitment. On the flip side of that, maybe you get a free discovery flight. It makes you a little bit nervous, but you're excited. By the end of it, you're grinning so much that your cheeks hurt. So you go for it. You start flight school. You start making memories. You start learning intricately interesting subjects. You find there's a wealth of information in this career, and you get to keep learning it at each phase, meeting like-minded people along the way. And before you know it, it was the best thing that ever happened to you. And now you're in this amazing industry, and you get to love your job. And guys, it's a pretty freaking cool job. It's a job that will challenge you on a regular basis. You will grow from it. It will keep your mind sharp. And you can choose to make it a career and or a hobby, depending on how much you're enjoying it. There is a whole community out there for general aviation. Okay, to wrap up, you need your medical. You need funding. You have to have perseverance and patience. You've got to find the right flight school for you. And lastly, you have to like it. You will not get far if you don't. Trust me, I really hope this episode has been beneficial for you guys and that has answered at least some of your pressing questions. However, I'm sure you have more, so send them my way at youraviatorsguide@gmail.com. And join me again next Friday for the next episode where I will cover each license and rating that you will need in detail. Remember, you can find video versions of this podcast on YouTube by clicking the link below or by searching The Aviator's Guide. These episodes are also available anywhere you listen to your podcasts. If you're enjoying this podcast, I would appreciate it if you like it, follow it, subscribe to it, rate it, review it, and send it to your friends like a viral TikTok. Thanks so much for joining me. Y'all stay awesome, and I'll see you later, aviators.